Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. Without a doubt, the toughest position for an offense to be in is pinned inside your own 1-yard line. Forget the fact that you need to go 99 yards for a touchdown, which is the maximum length possible on a play from scrimmage. You literally have no room for error. Lose yards on a run? That's a safety. Get sacked? That's a safety. Get a holding penalty? That's a safety. Paddling the school canoe? Oh, you better believe that's a safety. The 99-yard touchdowns are few and far between. There's a reason that in the over 100-year history of the NFL, it's only happened 15 times. Most of the time, a touchdown isn't the goal from the 1-yard line. It's just to do anything possible to get out of there. Getting a first down is nice, but you really just want to give yourself some breather room so you can open up the playbook in later downs. Or worst case scenario, make it so that your punter isn't punting with no room whatsoever, and where the probability of a blocked punt increases tremendously. And there are many ways that coaches try and get out of this pickle. Some give it to their running back and let him do the work. Some just call a quarterback sneak or a fullback dive, where even though you're not going to get a whole lot of yards, you're pretty much guaranteed to not lose anything. And some put faith in their quarterback and try and pass it. While passing the ball can be risky, as a sack or a holding penalty or an intentional grounding call results in a safety, at least if you complete it, the ball won't be in the end zone. You're not losing yards on a completed pass in this situation. However, even though that statement should be common sense to anyone who's ever watched a football game or played a single game of Madden, it is no longer entirely true. Because the Miami Dolphins just did something that you have to see to believe. For those who aren't watching this in the immediate aftermath of the game, let me set the scene for you and paint a picture of what we're working with here. It's September 26, 2021, and the Miami Dolphins are taking on the Las Vegas Raiders at Allegiant Stadium in this AFC matchup. This is a big game for both of these teams. For Miami, they just placed starting quarterback and last year's first-round pick Tua Tagovailoa on injured reserve, meaning that Jacoby Brissett is getting his first start as a Dolphin. As for Vegas, they're 2-0 following an unbelievable Monday Night Football win to open up the season against the Baltimore Ravens, and a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. If they win this game, then they start the season 3-0 for the first time since 2002, which is when they last won the division, won a playoff game, and made it to the Super Bowl. Even though this was an early season game, and even though this was by no means a make-or-break game, there was a lot riding on this, especially after the thriller that those two teams played against each other in 2020. And even though the Dolphins were underdogs, and even though it didn't seem like a whole lot of people were giving them a chance in this one, they got off to a pretty strong start, especially defensively. Miami forced a 3-and-out on their first drive of the game, and then on their second drive, as Vegas got near the red zone, Derek Carr got intercepted by Landon Roberts, who took it 85 yards to the house for a pick six. Midway through the first quarter, Miami had stunned the Vegas crowd by jumping out to a 7-0 lead. And after Vegas went 4-and-out on their next drive, thanks to a big stop on fourth down, Miami took advantage of the short field, with Malcolm Brown running at 24 yards for the score. Miami had a field day running on Vegas, running for over 130 yards and over 4.9 yards per carry, and this was their best run of the day. 3 minutes after looking like they were going to be trailing with the Raiders on the outskirts of the red zone, the Dolphins were leading 14-0. The good news was that once again, the defense did its job on Vegas' fourth drive of the game, and forced a punt. When it's almost the end of the first quarter, and in 4 drives, your defense has forced 2 punts, a turnover on downs in the opposition's own territory, and a pick six, you know that they're doing their job. This was the defense that looked so good in 2020 and kept Miami in the playoff hunt until the bitter end, even if their offense wasn't that great. The bad news was that following a punt by AJ Cole, the Dolphins were going to be starting the next drive at their own 1-yard line. Now, as tough as this is, you can do some things to get out of this. Give it to the fullback and hope he gets 2 yards to get some breathing room. Head it off conventionally. Try a quick pass to get a few yards. Heck, even try and catch the defense completely off guard and try a deep pass where you might be able to draw a pass interference penalty. Instead, the Dolphins do not do that. Because on this day, the Dolphins decided that they were going to make some NFL history in the worst possible way. Behold the worst screen pass you will ever see in your life.
Operating out of his own end zone, his team is up 14-0. He will throw it. Oh, the catch and blasted Jalen Waddle at a safety.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something that looked bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something that looked awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Brian Flores. I think most people have been fairly impressed with the job Flores has done in Miami so far. He took a team that had no business competing in 2019, and over the second half of the season, made them competitive in just about every single game. He took a team that was not expected to do much of anything in 2020, and led them to double-digit wins. there's definitely been more positive than negative things to say about Flores so far. But this play right here, yeah, this is definitely going in the negative side. So with that being said, let's take a look at why calling a screen pass in your own end zone with no blockers whatsoever is a horrible idea. And before I go any further, I want to emphasize that this play was absolutely historic, and I say that without a shred of recency bias whatsoever. Pro Football Reference has an amazingly detailed gameplay finder going all the way back to 1994, so with a simple click of a button, you can look at any play in NFL history to take place in the last 30 some odd years. Not once has there ever been a completed pass without any fumbles or shenanigans of some kind that resulted in a safety. Of the hundreds of plays called at the 1 yard line, not once has a quarterback completed a pass for a safety. That is a special kind of incompetence that will forever live in the storied history of the NFL for all the wrong reasons. As for why this play was bad, I think it goes without saying. I mean, we all have eyeballs. We all see the problem here. Anytime you call a play when you're in your own end zone at any point, it is incredibly risky. But normally, when you go into your own end zone, there's a very specific reason. And that's because the end result is that you will have the ball outside of it. As an example, if you want to take a shot down the field on the 1 yard line, you can't do that on a one-step drop back. You have to retreat it to your own end zone, even though that is not the final destination. This is one of the only times where the final destination, for some reason, was the end zone. If everything went according to plan, the receiver would have been in the end zone. Something like this makes no sense whatsoever. Why would you willingly call a play where the receiver is catching the ball in his own end zone? It just doesn't make any sense because it can go horribly wrong, as we saw here. Now, for longtime viewers of the channel, you might be thinking that I am a giant hypocrite right now, because a while ago, I defended Stagger Lee in an episode of In Defense Of, and I've seen plenty of people on Twitter argue that this play was similar to Stagger Lee. You can hear the detailed breakdown of that play and that defense by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But in short, during the 1987 divisional round against the Denver Broncos, the Houston Oilers tried a similar play, where Warren Moon threw a similar pass to Mike Rozier in the end zone, and it ended in absolute disaster, completely setting the tone for that entire game. And yet, I had no problem with that call. I defended it. No problem whatsoever. So why do I have no problem with Stagger Lee? Yeah, I think what Brian Flores called here was one of the worst called plays in NFL history? Well, there is a very valid reason for that. One of the things I like to look at when analyzing a play and either bashing it to the moon and back or defending it and saying it wasn't that bad is to look at what had to happen for the play to work. Let's look at Stagger Lee for a second. For this play to work, all Mike Rozier had to do was catch the ball. He was a Pro Bowl running back who had pretty good hands. I don't think it's a lot to expect an NFL player of his caliber to catch the ball. If he catches it, the Oilers have blockers, and this likely turns into a big play. For Stagger Lee to work, it required a Pro Bowler to catch an easy ball thrown his way. However, for this play by the Dolphins to work, considering the fact that Miami had no blockers out in front, making the closing in on wide receiver Jalen Waddle inevitable, since Miami had the genius idea to have not one, but two wide receivers run that screen pattern in the end zone, it required not just for Waddle to catch the pass, but to have him break a tackle and get out of the end zone. As a good word of advice and as a good rule of thumb, anytime you have a play where the only way it will work is if the player in question has to break a tackle, it is a good idea to just toss that play out of the playbook entirely. This raises the very important question. Was it realistic for Waddle to be able to make a play and break a tackle after catching the pass, even assuming that it was a perfectly thrown ball, and even assuming that Waddle had momentum on his side? Absolutely not. This is nothing like Stagger Lee in the slightest bit, because the odds of Waddle breaking a tackle here on this play were incredibly slim. I looked at every catch that Waddle had in his NFL career up until this point. Maybe I would be more forgiving if the receiver in question was a big tight end or a Derrick Henry-like player that can bulldoze people and push bodies forward and break tackles. The 183-pound Jalen Waddle is not one of those guys. Not at all. Entering this game, Waddle had 10 receptions. I'm not counting his touchdown where he dove for the pylon, or a catch he had against Buffalo in Week 2 where he ran out of bounds. In the 8 receptions that Waddle made in the open field where his goal was to stay up as long as possible and make guys miss, he went down on first contact in 7 of them. He could not shake off first contact more than 87% of the time. And better yet, the Dolphins called 3 screen passes similar to this against the Bills in Week 2, and Waddle went down on first contact in all of them. If he didn't succeed here, and that was when he actually had blockers out in front and could get somewhat of a running start, then what makes you think he was going to succeed here, on a play in his own end zone where the defense is expecting something short and where Waddle has no blockers to help him out? He is not a guy that can do it on his own. He was hung out to dry here. It was an atrocious play call and play design all the way around. After the game, the screen pass was definitely a topic of conversation. Jacoby Brissett himself called the play a dumb decision. And while I admire his honesty, my lawyers will be calling his residence sometime in the next 48 hours. As for the man who actually called the play in Brian Flores, he said that the play was bad. And I think that's the understatement of the century right there. He said, "We didn't execute it well. Obviously, we've got to do a better job." And while Flores is right, I don't think the problem here was execution. You had no blockers. You had a wide receiver that hadn't exactly done a great job getting yards after contact and staying upright. You had a defense that was waiting on the play because you called it a fair amount last week, and because the defense is expecting everything short on the 1-yard line. What did you think was going to happen? The execution went about as well as you could have expected for a play design this poor, and the sooner the Dolphins scrap this play from their playbook in these situations going forward, the better. So what do we learn from all this? Anytime you're pinned on the 1-yard line, don't do what Brian Flores just did. Don't call screen passes in your own end zone, and don't call passes in your own end zone where the receiver will catch the ball still in position for a safety. If you are going to do this, at least have blockers so that the receiver can get yards after the catch. Don't leave him out to dry to the point where a safety is all but inevitable. And if your play design working relies on a 180-pound receiver who has not broken a tackle in his career having to break a tackle, and if your play design is so bad that the opposing defense actually wants you to catch the ball, then you should probably go back to the drawing board and think things over. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9 and subscribe to 60-second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters who help grow the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.